Welcome to our session on debugging CSS. We'll go right to an example. Here's the page on the left and the HTML on the right. I've removed the CSS style sheet for now, so we have essentially a plain page. Despite these classes, they're not calling out any CSS that exists yet for that page. And this is kind of a review of tools we've looked at before, the inspect element here. I wanted to call out some things. So with no CSS, there's still style here. So user agent style sheet. And this is the style sheet that comes from the browser. So this already has, as we know, a box model. Everything's a box model. There's no CSS. It already starts out that way. And this is the size based on the, with no height or width of the element. This is a size purely based on content. You can still see the effect of the box model, the content, the padding, the border, margin, even though there's zero. Of course, this is the DOM view of the element, as we saw in the HTML debugging element. So let's apply some CSS and we'll see some effects here. So I'll just correct the path. And now we see the border box and all those. So I'll do right click here and inspect, and we see down here the border. So these are the elements that it is inherited from. Our font size 200% has been overridden, and it was overwritten because the font size here is called out directly. So this with the cross through shows out inherited style elements, but that have been overridden locally, so HTML font size as well. And you can see if I delete this one, then it inherits the font size of 200%. And if I delete this one, then it inherits the font size times 62.5%, which, as we saw, if the default border, or pardon me, the default font size for the browser is 16 pixels, then it works out exactly to 10 pixels, convenient for calculation. In addition to checking or unchecking characteristics of the CSS, you can click over here and type in directly. New. It's a little tricky. Hit the tab key and then 10 pixels, say. So you can, on the fly, create your own CSS and see the effect of it. So quite useful in developing your CSS. When you hit refresh, none of this CSS is permanent. So it doesn't write back to the original files at all. And when you hit refresh, the source comes back into play. So these are essentially the tools you can understand what the CSS is getting. As we've seen, CSS can be quite complicated in its layout. Multiple CSS can come from multiple files, can be scattered throughout the HTML, and then with this tool you can see the CSS as it is actually applied, but also see the inherited aspects of the CSS and what properties have been overwritten by CSS as it's understood more locally. So you can understand how the CSS is being applied via the style sheets and the HTML. Also how it's interacting with the browser's default CSS, but you're also able to edit these, insert and delete, turn off and turn on attributes and properties that are coming from CSS and see the effects immediately on the page. So those are the tools available to you in the Elements tab to debug CSS. Thank you.